Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a really fascinating journey through our sources to explore a concept that we're going to call the funnel of fear. It's all about how we as humans interact with the unknown. We're going to start way up at the wide top of the funnel, looking at broad, abstract concepts in our fiction. Then, we'll narrow it down into how science tries to explain our weird world. From there, we'll step outside into the actual physical wilderness of our national parks, and finally, drop right down to the very bottom of the funnel, a gritty, claustrophobic, and entirely real true crime mystery. I'm literally so excited to explore this whole shebang with you, so let's just jump right in. So think about this. Why are we so fundamentally drawn to the dark, the macabre, and the unknown? Well, it's a fascinating question, and it turns out it's a foundational part of our psychology. We're literally hardwired to be curious about the things that scare us. I mean, our survival used to depend on understanding whatever shadowy threat was lurking just outside the campfire light. But what's absolutely crucial and really interesting about our sources today is seeing how our framework for processing that fear has totally shifted over time. The things that keep us tossing and turning at night, they've changed as our understanding of the world has evolved. Just look at how our stories have shifted. Classic Gothic horror, that traditionally deals with the external unknown. Grand, decaying castles, supernatural monsters, ancient curses coming from the outside to get you. It's the fear of the other. But modern horror, it totally turns the camera inward. It's deeply psychological. It's all about existential dread, the monsters living inside our own minds, or that terrifying realization that maybe we can't even trust our own perception of reality. As we've learned more about human psychology and just how incredibly fragile the brain really is, we've realized the scariest monsters aren't always hiding out in the woods. Actually, they're very often hiding right inside our own heads. Which brings us to Section 1, Science of the Unknown, categorizing our fears. It's honestly fascinating how desperately we try to categorize the bizarre, isn't it? We use science like a flashlight in the dark. If you dive into the massive archives of the science show Curiosity Weekly, you'll see researchers relentlessly tackling macabre subjects. And they're not just telling spooky campfire stories, they're actively mapping out the phenomena that terrify us. They look into the literal biology of fungal zombies, parasites that actually take over the minds of insects. They study the profound neurological shifts of near-death experiences, and they investigate bizarre ecosystems that feel like alien marshes. Scientists are constantly trying to shine a light on these concepts, attempting to drag the terrifying unknown kicking and screaming into the realm of the known and quantifiable. Let's zoom in on one of those deeply unsettling scientific concepts for a second: false memories. This is a psychological phenomenon where your mind literally fabricates past events. You can remember something incredibly vividly, the sights, the sounds, the emotions, but it never actually happened. Your brain just created a fiction and confidently filed it away as a fact. Crazy, right? The big takeaway here is that science proves the unknown isn't just fungal zombies or deep space anomalies. The unknown is actively chilling in the filing cabinets of our own brains. Our minds can effortlessly lie to us. And honestly, that might be one of the most terrifying scientific realities of all. Moving on to Section 2, National Park Mysteries, into the Untamed Wilderness. Okay, so leaving the abstract science of the mind, let's step outside into the physical world. When we think of places like the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, which, by the way, sees over 12 million recreational visits a year, we usually picture family vacations. We think of funnel cakes, miniature golf, and cheerful little tourist traps in Gatlinburg. We go there to feel safe and relaxed in nature. But, as researcher Steve Stockton points out, just past that safe, glossy veneer of relaxing streams lies a completely different reality. There's a dark side out there filled with grisly murders, utterly baffling disappearances, and bone-chilling hauntings. Turns out, nature is anything but safe. Across these different locations, the pristine wilderness gives way to some truly bizarre realities, and the legends totally adapt to their environment. Down in the lush, ancient forests of the Great Smoky Mountains, local folklore is completely dominated by Cherokee legends of the little people and feral wild men living just out of sight.
Meanwhile, out in the stark, blistering heat of Joshua Tree, the mystery takes a much grimmer, criminal turn. The vast emptiness makes it tragically known for real-world body dumps. And then you have Mount Shasta over in California, which cranks things up to an entirely different, almost sci-fi level, with local lore about, get this, high-tech robot kidnappers.
I mean, Mount Shasta is this majestic, totally serene camping destination. It's a place of just immense natural beauty. Yet it's famously tied to the absolute bizarre. Theories of a hollow earth, crazy sci-fi spectacles, and lost super races living miles beneath the mountain. It really makes you think about the human condition, doesn't it? We project our deepest, most complex anxieties right onto the blank canvases of the wild. The very places we specifically go to for peace and quiet are the exact same places that serve as backdrops for our most unsettling supernatural and sci-fi folklore.
Now for Section 3, a town's breaking point, the Skidmore murder.
All right, we are now at the very bottom of our funnel of fear. We're leaving the expansive wilderness and psychological myths completely behind and stepping into a gritty, claustrophobic, true crime reality. The monster in this story? It wasn't a gothic vampire, it wasn't a psychological hallucination, and it definitely wasn't a Mount Shasta robot. The monster was a man. His name was Ken Rex Melroy. He was a charismatic but deeply, deeply menacing local bully who effectively held the small farming community of Skidmore, Missouri, totally hostage. He used a brilliant defense attorney and just relentless, extreme intimidation of witnesses to evade the law time and time again. If someone crossed him, he didn't just get mad. He terrorized their families, poisoned their dogs, and made absolutely sure they knew the law could not protect them.
And you know what happens when a reign of terror is left unchecked? It escalates. From the 1950s to the 70s, McElroy was known locally for rustling hogs and cattle. A nuisance, sure, but mostly just a petty criminal. But then, in 1980, things took a violent turn. He shot a popular, elderly grocery store owner named Bo Bowenkamp squarely in the neck over a minor dispute about a piece of candy. Literally, a piece of candy. By early 1981, he was brazenly pointing a shotgun at and stalking the wife of the very state trooper who had arrested him. He was out on bond, parading around town with a rifle, practically shouting to everyone that he was untouchable. Which brings us to the absolute boiling point, the morning of July 10, 1981.
60. That's right, 60. That's the estimated number of local men who gathered at the Legion Hall in Skidmore on that steamy July morning. You can imagine the atmosphere. It was just thick with frustration and desperation. Years of unchecked abuse and a completely failed justice system had pushed these ordinary farmers and shopkeepers to their absolute limits. They were meeting to figure out how to protect themselves now that McElroy was back in town on bond. But the meeting abruptly ended when word arrived that McElroy was sitting in his Silverado pickup truck right outside the local D&G Tavern. The time for talking was officially over.
This brings us to Section 4, the Wall of Silence, a public secret.
So, outside the tavern, with dozens of local men surrounding his truck, shots suddenly rang out from multiple different weapons. McElroy's truck windows shattered and he was killed instantly right there in the driver's seat. But when state troopers arrived to secure the scene, a scene, mind you, that was crawling with dozens of potential eyewitnesses in broad daylight, they hit an immediate, totally impenetrable wall of collective amnesia. The unanimous chorus from the town was simply, "I didn't see anything, I don't know what happened." Men who were standing mere feet away suddenly claimed they had been looking the other way, or, my personal favorite, had just ducked under a pool table. Now, this wall of silence stood in stark contrast to the claims of McElroy's wife, Trina. She was sitting right next to him in the passenger seat, screaming when he was ambushed. She insisted to the press and the police he was a good-hearted person. He'd help anyone who needed to be helped. She accused the town of turning her husband into a convenient scapegoat and pointed the finger directly at a local rancher as one of the shooters. But the police, they quickly found themselves entirely paralyzed. Without cooperative, corroborating witnesses from the community, Trina's testimony alone just wasn't enough to secure an indictment against an entirely unified town. 38. For over 38 years, despite immense national media attention, dedicated task forces, and the full weight of FBI investigations, no one has ever been charged with the murder of Ken Rex McElroy. The town kept it secret.
As legal experts have noted over the decades, unless a credible witness suddenly decides to come forward out of the blue, this case will simply never be solved. The town of Skidmore effectively weaponized the unknown. By collectively refusing to name the shooters, they created a permanent void of information that the justice system literally could not penetrate. They used silence to protect their own.
And that brings us to the very end of our funnel, leaving us with a deeply provocative question. Was true justice ever actually served in Skidmore? Well, on paper, the law says no. An unsolved murder is inherently a failure of the justice system, right? But to a town pushed way past its breaking point, a manufactured unknown, this collective, intentional false memory of not seeing a single thing, that was their verdict. It really brings our entire journey full circle. It goes to show that the unknown isn't just something we fear in the abstract or some monster hiding in the national parks. Sometimes the unknown is a powerful tool we construct in our own minds just to survive. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you next time.